Well, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tony, and the channel is Tony Talks Cards. We're going to be talking with a new friend today. This may be my fifth or sixth time to chat on screen with somebody. I really like doing these and love getting to know more of the collectors I interact with and see on YouTube. Chat about their videos, their origin stories, what they collect, what they like, and hopefully share some of that with you all. And so if you all aren't subscribed to my new friend yet, definitely take a look at his channel. I'll link it in the comments in the title of the video coming here. So check him out, give him a like, give him a subscribe. But without further ado, I'll introduce my new friend Ross from Ross Loves Cards. Hey there, Ross.
Hey, Tony. How's it going?
Good, good. I love it. We've got both of our names. So if I forget your name, I just look right to your title there. It's perfect. So
I answer to hey you or whatever you want to use. So
yeah, I know. Sometimes it's like, what's your name again? I forget like some people's name unintentionally, of course, but having it in the title sure helps me out too. So no. Perfect. Well, no, thanks for making some time. I know you're a couple hours ahead over in Missouri. We were talking about right before this. So I know your channel's been around for a couple months, I want to say. So maybe if you want to give us an intro of kind of why you started, what the channel's all about, and what you're enjoying so far about YouTube, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, I guess I got started probably when I started collecting when I was about 5 or 6. Some mom and dad both got me some baseball cards and got me a binder. And every card I opened, I put in that binder. No, I didn't have any commons. They was all special, So I started with that. Then when I got a little bit older, I got into playing basketball and really got big into Akeem Olajuwon. Favorite player growing up. I did get two of his cards just to show.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
Probably my favorite basketball card. It's the Flair Showcase Rejector. And this Skybox. Well, sorry about the glare there.
No, that's okay.
But it's a Skybox Ruby edition. It's before they really had a lot of variants. Instead of gold at the bottom, it was in red. But Akeem Olajuwon, I had two of his jerseys, both the Houston Rockets and the USA team when he was on the Olympics in '96. That was big time for basketball for me during the '96 Olympics. Remember when we'd go on vacation, if we was going to stop somewhere on the road, I'd ask to stop at a Texaco because they had Texaco trading cards of the Olympic basketball team.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a great summer and great memory to connect that to.
I think there was like 16 of them or something, but if I need to stop the restroom, we needed gas, I always tried to look for them Texaco signs because of that.
Well, they got a lot of business because of that, I'm sure, that summer too.
Yeah, but as far as my Akeem collection, I think I went through and counted this morning and had 279 non-doubles of his.
Wow. Anything early or more from the 90s when you were collecting more often?
I've got late 80s. I do not have the Star or the Fleer rookie card, but I've got out of a handful or so before 90 of his. Okay. I recently found out they've got 22 cards of him. Kind of started a rainbow collection. I've got 6 of them. Just when I see them, I'll pick that up. But
yeah, that's cool.
I've done, but he was collecting Akeem Olajuwon really got me into loving cards. I didn't have a list that I would keep track of. I just memorized every card I had. So when I go to the store, I'd say, well, hey, I don't have this. And over the years, I counted up, I bought 9 doubles that I forgot that I'd already had. So I do have 9 duplicates, but so that kind of just looking at cards, memorizing them. And, from that, I've fell out of cards for a little bit. Then one of my buddies, he was into cards and he kind of got me back into it and kind of lost a little bit of interest and got back into it. And so this is my 3rd or 4th round into collecting.
I think we all can probably take a pause or maybe a break or maybe a permanent break versus being all in for X amount of years, right? From childhood all the way to adulthood now. So that kind of makes sense I know with me, I began collecting when I was in probably 2nd or 3rd grade. Got one of those like scholastic book fairs you'd go to at your school, and they had like your first card collecting kit. And it had like 5 cards in it, maybe a really old brittle plastic page, maybe a price guide of some sort. And none of them were stars, of course, but there was kind of got me thinking about, well, these guys are on cardboard. That's kind of cool. They're colorful. They're people I watch on TV, teams I know about that are good or bad or otherwise. And there's more than one. There's a whole set. And my mind works like a set collector. So if I see there's one, but there's 400 cards in the set, if I could put my allowance money towards that, 50 cents at a time, whatever it was, a buck at a time, and buy those packs and then complete it and have like a task that's done and completed, that made sense with the way I was wired. And so I got hooked real early with that stuff. And right around those kind of late 80s times when there were just a couple sets for baseball and football, the mainstream sets, and some basketball too, of course. But then heyday was really in that kind of late 80s, early 90s, where there became like 3 sets of baseball to like 30 sets in like 5 years. And I couldn't keep up. I wanted to buy them all, but my money was, of course, not endless. So I kind of fell away from some of that in high school because it's got to be hard to catch up and want to collect everything. And then things like, college came into play. You want to save for that. But no, it's a good common story a lot of us have there. So did you ever get in? So I guess were the Rockets and Olajuwon your team because maybe there wasn't a team in Missouri, or did you grow up somewhere else, not Missouri?
No, I grew up in Missouri.
Okay.
Everybody else was a Jordan fan, and I wanted to be different, But
there you go. Yeah, it's not too far away. I guess just north of Chicago is.
Yeah,
there.
Probably 7-8 hours from here. But now Memphis is as close. It's probably 3 hours away from here. So the Grizzlies. But yeah, Houston was fairly close, and I liked post play, and I liked that he was 7 foot, and I thought he was my player, and just kind of ran with it.
It's funny, yeah, and you wonder, like I thought about too, if I was raised in another state, different, whatever, right? First card was a basketball card, not a football card. Would I have been as into what I am? But that one interaction, maybe the one time you saw him on TV, all of a sudden, like it leads to this all these years later, right? So I became more of a Chicago fan because we didn't have cable till I was probably in 6th or 7th grade. And then WGN, streaming from Chicago, would show all the Cubs games and Bulls games on there too. And I thought, well, that's a good team in the 90s. I should root for them. And obviously they were good in the 90s. Cubs, not so much. And the Bears you'd see on NBC or Fox, once a week during the football season. So, but showing those guys on TV all the time, every afternoon, it kind of made you think you want to be a fan of them, despite me living like 8 states away in the time. So it's kind of weird how that kind of makes your brain think this should be your team and how those interactions change and how they kind of form maybe where you're at right now.
Yeah. And when I was collecting Olajuwon back then, something I thought of that was different than now, I never checked price guides before buying anything. If it was $5 and I had the $5, well, it was worth it to me,
Yeah. At your local card shop, you saw it in hand, you could pick it up. There was no eBay or Amazon or Facebook, when we were kids. It kind of was there to be looked at, and I'll take it home with me, right?
Yeah, I had a Beckett, but that's just kind of look at the different cards. I never, made any buying decisions off of that or not. But
that's a good point. Yeah, the Beckett's came out. I want to say baseball was the late 80s. Football was 1990. I know that. And so I would always look in the local card shop I'd go to and kind of flip through and just see kind of what the cards I needed or were missing for my set completionist kind of view of things. They had articles in there too about stuff I never would have bought and old stuff and kind of like, wow, this is so cool to see that Mickey Mantle card talked about in an article, but never would have bought one, right? But you kind of know what you're missing. And a lot of us of the same certain age, I guess, would remember those price guides being around. And whether you looked at the prices or not, it was a way to keep contact with what was going on in the hobby, some news, new sets, pictures. They were color pictures, articles. It's a good memory for me thinking about those times too.
You bet.
Yeah. Now, did you ever get into baseball, or when did baseball maybe start with you in card collecting?
It'd start off with baseball with the packs. I don't know how many packs. I had 2 baseball binders, I know, but I don't know how many packs bought over the years. And I'd buy some, singles here and there. I think I bought like the Fleer rookie of Griffey Jr. and just odd and end cards.
Yeah.
Baseball, when I was probably 5 to 6, my 2 favorite teams were the Oakland A's and the Chicago White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if I like the A's because I could spell their team's name or because of their color.
That's a good one. I like A's. Yeah, it's pretty quick. Yeah, get that one spelled.
I always liked the A's and the White Sox. I think about, the White Sox had showed the close-up batting, just like Frank Thomas, how big his forearms are. And I thought, he's got to be a monster of a man. And I thought the
Yeah.
White Sox were cool. But later on, my sister, she lives in Kansas City. And Kansas City's always kind of been my favorite town. So I naturally just kind of went to the Royals being my team. Then best friend from, I guess, second grade on up to today, his family was Royals.
Okay.
So me and him, we always had that in common, like the Royals and Cardinals. We was about the only two kids at our school, that was Royals fans. But
I was going to say the Cardinals are now. How far is St. Louis from where you are right now?
St. Louis is probably just a shade over 3 hours, and Kansas City's.
Okay, so it's not like it's too different, I guess, between the two.
No.
But you may have like people divided who like this team versus that team, and then when I was growing, I grew up in Arizona, and the St. Louis football Cardinals came to Phoenix in 1987, I think it was. Before that, we didn't have a team, but I was a Bears fan before that, so I kind of I took them before the Cardinals came close where I was. But we didn't have the Diamondbacks here until 1996, I think it was. And I wasn't living here at the time, but definitely that's the home team we would all root for. If I'm not the Cubs, who was my team, definitely the D-backs. I'd hope to do better than they have been doing, and long term doing better. But yeah, we had the World Series here back in 2001 with the Yankees, but kind of been an up and down team here. And they had a good year a couple years ago, but then I don't keep up with them that much because I don't watch all that kind of. The baseball season is pretty long. For me, it's kind of like an attention span thing where it's like, oh, are we in game 58 versus 98? And how are we doing? So others are more diehard than I am, but definitely root for the home team if we can.
Well, since they've done the whole streaming thing, I probably don't watch. Well, I know I don't watch near as much as I used to because games on TV. I was looking through, and I think I had for like the whole week. One week there was like 4 or 5 different games I could watch. I guess I should get the streaming package, but I spend a lot of time at college football when that comes around. Try to take the summers off a little bit.
Yeah. No, college football, it's weird. It's like it's 10, 12, 13 games. I can get around that mentally of like one a week. Football is 1 a week for 17 games. Some people love baseball, no issues with that, but it's 162 games plus postseason plus preseason. It's hard to keep up with, at least with me right now. So
but
if the Cubs are ever in the playoffs, I'll watch them in October, but may not watch them from April to September because I don't have a lot of the time for that. But I'll watch them when they do get there. So, so in terms of, I guess, collecting and taking your collecting journey to YouTube, we're talking on YouTube right now. We're doing a recording. This wouldn't have happened probably 15 or 20 years ago. What kind of moved you to turn the camera around and talk about your cards? A couple months ago, maybe it was?
Yeah, just shy of a couple months, I believe. I've been a fan of YouTube for probably 6, 7, 8 years, of various things, depending on what I'm into at the time or what I'm focusing on. I mean, everybody knows you can find anything you want and a lot of stuff you don't want to on there. But the most recent time that I got into it, I was kind of looking more into hiking and was paying attention to that. And then I've had some health issues where I can't be reliable to go hiking. So I thought I can just about always look at baseball cards. I'm going to watch some baseball card videos. And
there you go.
So I got to watching some videos and I got to thinking, well, what type of card do I like to collect? There for a while, I looked into opening packs, to go with new ball cards. And I thought, well, I've done that a few years ago. And we kind of had to check myself how much, just open packs and packs and got excess of cards. And run through a lot of money and have a bunch of stuff that most people not necessarily would want. And to me, it kind of felt a little bit like gambling. So I didn't much care for that side of it.
Sure.
I still love baseball, and then I got to looking into vintage baseball. One channel that really stood out to me was Southern Collector 14. Tony, how he'll go into depth and he'll talk 30 to 40 minutes about one player, about maybe a 2-part section.
Yeah.
I tell you what, just listening, look into the history, and I got to thinking, I really like to learn history. I like to look back. I like to read things. I also like to gather information. I like to share information with other people of what I've learned.
Yeah.
Job as a pastor, I do a lot of studying, then put things together and try to share it with other people to make it understandable for
That's
them.
right.
So,
Yeah.
I told my wife, I said, I'd kind of like to have a YouTube video over ball cards. And she said,
Yeah.
really? Yeah. She said, well, you can think on it and see what you think. And then after enough times me thinking on it and still wanting to do it, I finally decided to go ahead and do my first video. I done the video, part of the reason because I like to share information, like to study, and like to tell
Yeah.
people. And also, I think I was wearing my wife out by showing her the cards I got and trying to explain her who this was. And she
You
tells
need a channel, Ross. Go gut your channel, right? Go do that.
she says, I like cards, but I just don't like them as much as you do. So,
Okay. Yeah. That's exciting though. And yeah, no, I can't say I dislike Southern Collector 14 because of the first name. I'm a little biased with Tony right there. I like that name too. But no, it's funny how much you can find you don't want to find on YouTube, like you said. But then baseball cards it's 2 words, but you can be deep into one player. You can be opening packs. You can be showing 50 cards on a channel in 10 minutes, and modern, vintage. You just did a video, I think, about different things you can collect: old, new, middle, random, oddball, packs, whatever, sets, things like that. So there's a lot of different subgroups you can go down into. And odds are there's someone for you or a group for you on YouTube. You just got to find
yeah.
who those people are. And it may take some time to refine and look at who you are watching and what they're doing. And do you like that? Do you not like it? And find your people. But sounds like you're diving right in, and hopefully you're enjoying it so far.
Oh, absolutely. And I found out, the circle of people that you kind of revolve around, it kind of changes, and you kind of refine your collection, as I'd say,
Yeah.
what going.
Yeah, I think that's true too. I don't know if you remember, you mentioned Tony Southern Collector 14. What did you remember, like what you first like typed in to find these channels? Was it just baseball card collecting, sports cards? Like how'd you kind of dive in to start looking at stuff?
The word vintage was the first.
Vintage. All
Yeah,
right, that's good.
was the word I typed in. At the time, I didn't necessarily know what vintage was or how that was defined.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, and I started listening to some different live streams of different people talking,
Yeah.
getting together, talking kind of like us or podcast style. And they was talking about, with vintage cards. I can't remember who it was, or I'd quote them, but
Yeah.
cards, you generally don't have to worry about any skeletons coming out of the closet and the card tanking after that,
There
or
you go.
you ain't got to worry about them having an injury, cards going to nothing, who
Yeah.
they is pretty well who they are from here on.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, certainly. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess it's supply and demand, right? If someone's gonna not want them for some oddball reason, something comes out. But if someone's been around for 100 years or 50 years, odds are there's not a lot of fluctuation like there could be with the guy who just came up to the majors yesterday for your Cardinals or Royals or the Cubs, and like, well, they could be here or they could be way down here and not worth a lot. Not that it's all about worth, of course, and cost, but there's a lot more fluctuation on maybe collecting and how much someone would collect somebody and the worth, quote unquote, to somebody. Yeah, for sure.
Plus, you don't have to keep up with, like you said, the new and up and comers, and the
Yeah.
different cards.
Yeah, their stats aren't going to change. They've still got all those hits and home runs. You're not watching them every weekend or every weekday. You know who they are. You can watch videos of your favorite old vintage players on YouTube. Old games from them playing, and kind of fast forward to the home runs or the strikeouts or the whatever the case is, the World Series wins, and kind of compartmentalize it that way too. So, no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when I first got into this, I mean, even the term vintage, I would have thought, what does vintage mean? Like you said, is it like I'm north of 40, but is vintage like the 70s? Is it 90s when I was a kid? Like, is that now vintage because we're 30 years after my high school days? Now I'm vintage, we're vintage, right? What does that mean? You hear like retro and vintage and pre-war and what's modern. Is modern in the last 5 years? Is it the last 10 years? What is that? So all these things you kind of have to figure out for yourself and see where you kind of fit for sure.
Yeah, and people call it different stuff.
Yeah.
I think the junk wax era, I kind of would call that retro. I can't remember who termed that, but
Yeah.
and then before that, probably what I do vintage, and after that's modern. But
And maybe it's like you have like, Gen X, millennials, there's a certain general consensus of like what years is baby boomer, Gen X, things like
yeah,
that. And maybe it's within a year or two, depending on who you're talking to. Yeah, vintage probably is, I think people probably say it's probably before 1980 or 80-ish and kind of before that. And maybe
yeah,
the 80s are a little bit too modern, maybe retro, like you said, not vintage. But the stuff I collected when I was young, it's like, wow, that's now become this other term. I guess I'm a little older than I was before too now.
hard to believe 1980 was 45 years ago, but yeah.
I know. Yeah, you think about how long that was. Then 45 years from 1980 was 1935. I mean, you think about how that seems so different those years. Not that we were around in 35, but now to 2025, it's changed a lot for sure in different ways than it did from those other first 35 to 80. So, yeah, no, it's all cool little rabbit holes to go down and find what you want to look into and find your people. So, um, how was it, I guess, starting out? Was it like scary to kind of turn the camera around and talk to yourself, talk to the camera? Was it like, what was that like for you, the first video that you did?
Well, I was going to say, thankfully through COVID, I shouldn't have said that, but during the time we
Mhm.
couldn't meet in church, I would do online sermons. Uh,
Got it.
so
Mhm.
that kind of got me a little bit used to talking in front of the camera. It got me used to just messing up and keeping it going.
Yeah. Yeah.
My first sermon that I did, well, it wasn't a sermon, but my first video I did at the church when we dismissed, I think was probably 3 to 5 minutes long. And I restarted that thing 12 times if I'd filmed it once, because I'd mess up and I think, well, I got to start over again. And so
Yeah.
uh, got a lot of kinks worked out through that. So not too awful scared to get in front of the camera. I've had people, uh, I was going to say disagree, but no, people would say, well, this was messed up, and this was, I mess up live in practice. I just go on and try to do better the next time. But
Yeah. When you're up there for whatever you're taught, whether it's church or somewhere else, 25 minutes, you've got to just keep going. You can't say, sorry, guys, forget what you just heard, roll back, do it again. Right. And your church now 20 extra minutes because you wanted to go and do it again.
turn back a page. We're going to do this right. Do it. Yeah. No.
That's really cool that, I mean, yeah, certainly COVID, whether because I worked at home, we all worked at home probably during those 4 or 5 years. I work at home right now. So a lot of my interactions, they go to the office one day a week. It's about an hour and a half away from where I live right now. Otherwise, the other 4 days, I'm talking to people on Teams and Zoom and other types of channels like that. And certainly just looking at a camera, little dot saying you're live, or looking at where do you look at here, here, here. And it's gotten easier now, but it was kind of odd to begin with. But having done 3, 4 years of talking to your church on not YouTube, but on whatever thing you're using, maybe it's on YouTube down the road. Yeah, you've kind of had some years of preparation, I guess,
Yeah.
for talking about at least baseball cards live for a couple minutes too.
And gotten used to hearing my voice. It's one of them things. If you've never heard your voice, you don't sound right
Yeah,
when you hear it, and you're just like, well, that ain't me talking.
yeah. That's why I don't like to listen back to when I talk because I've never had to do that. And in work, you just talk to someone on Teams and Zoom. You're talking about a work problem, you turn off. No one usually goes back and listens to what I or we talked about unless you really have to. It's just kind of a real time thing.
Yeah.
But if I record it for all time and post it on YouTube, it's out there. And yeah, ever since I was younger, I never liked how it sounded. You strange, you sound higher or lower, different tone, you talk fast or too slow. And so yeah, it's kind of getting over that's been okay for me. But that was kind of one of my first, do I really want to do this? Because I don't know how it's going to come out, and others have more polished setups, different cameras and lighting. And I kind of think about it for a couple months. And do I really want to invest the time to even talk and research and share and find the card off the shelf and here it is and talk about it and show 10 of them or 20 of them, right? And is
Yeah.
someone even going to care about what I show or even have the same interest? It's all the kind of things we probably commonly would have thought the day before you kind of kick it off and start.
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh, with the research, it's one of them deals. I plan on doing the research anyways. I find out, why I like that card, So I've got the research semi already done, and I like to dig deeper into it. So,
Yeah. I've started doing more of that too and looking at some of the baseball reference, other sites that talk about the whole pages of this player. I didn't know much about them, but besides their personal life now is their post career, some key interesting highlight milestone game they had, or maybe they played only a year in the league, and that's the one card they got was that 1 year, and that's all you can kind of find out about them, right? But
yeah.
each one has a story, whether it's maybe personal or professional, you kind of want to dive into and share. And as a kid, we never had access to, of course, YouTube, Google, research, things like this. You had the encyclopedia, which didn't talk about baseball players that we're talking about, or the back of the card, I guess, was your research tool. That few 5 sentences back there was all you knew about them until the next year's card came out, maybe, or the last year's card you look at too and see what they said about them. So yeah, a lot more is out there. I think it's really cool to dive deep, like you said, and tell a story. And I think what you do outside of YouTube definitely has probably helped you be able to craft and tell and research and then communicate in a way that's succinct. It's the way you want to do it. You're not new at that skill. That's great.
Yes, yeah, made it easier.
Yeah. Well, any cards you want to show off we haven't talked about yet, and definitely let's do a little roll call of what you got there, what you're curious about, excited about, maybe recent pickups. That'd be cool.
I do some modern collecting. With my modern, I do like a story behind it. The reason I got it, I've got a 11 Topps Chrome Ryan Mallett.
Mm-hmm.
He was Arkansas's quarterback, drafted to the Patriots. Actually passed away a year or two ago. But me and one of my good friends, we went and watched him play at Memphis in the Liberty Bowl. They played ECU, and it went to 2 or 3 overtimes. And what I remember about that game was around New Year's Eve. It was so cold. I think it was 24 degrees in Memphis.
Oh.
Wind was blowing. They had to put heaters in the bathroom. They was worried about the pipes freezing and stuff. And so after the game, we went to the bathroom, kind of huddled in there to try to warm up before we walked out to the car, But every time I look at that card, I think of that going to that trip with him.
That's great.
Got Drew Lock.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback from Mizzou. We got to see him have his first receiving touchdown and LSU. Me and my wife, we went to Baton Rouge one year to watch Mizzou play down there. So every time we got beat pretty handedly. So that was a game. So every time I look at that card, I think of that trip to Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And another card I have is Tim Tebow, rookie football card. I've got that because me and my wife got to meet him at SEC Nation, the show they do before SEC football games.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. He went around, and everybody that was on the front row, he'd shake hands or take a picture with or sign something. And he took a picture with my wife, and just as nice in person as he is on TV. Just a real
cool.
But
Good memories there. Yeah, that's really neat to have a memory tied to the card like that. That's special.
Yeah, it's kind of like kind of memory, like you said. Something kind of just brings my mind back to it. And you mentioned about different card I shared. I got this Indian chewing gum card from 1933. It's Buffalo Bull. There's different reasons why I got this card. I really like Native American history and stuff like that. I guess it's my great grandma. She was a full-blooded Cherokee, and I give my wife a hard time. I think it makes me like 1/16. That's what the math does now.
Yeah.
And whenever they put like race on the forms, I asked her, I said, "You think I should put Native American on this?" They're not going to believe that. So anyway, so that's kind of a joke between me.
American history right there. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I was looking for 33 Gowdy baseball cards, search on that. And I went through 10 or 12 on eBay, and that card popped up, and I said, I've got to have that card. And I've looked in the collection. I think there's 200 plus of them cards, so I'm not going
Yeah.
to chase that. But that one did come along that I find.
Yeah.
But here lately, my favorite era of baseball is probably the 50s. I'm a big Dodger fan. Probably my favorite card is the 51 Bowman. There's one of Rex Barney.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And I've also got Carl Erskine's rookie card.
Very cool. Yeah, I love those cards. That's nice. The artistic picture there, the drawing, the painting, very crisp and clear. Yeah.
Yeah. And Carl Erskine's probably my favorite player. What got me into looking at him was I just Googled, Christian vintage ball players. And two people that came up was Christy Mathewson, and the second one was Carl Erskine. And I don't know who came up with, I don't know what list or whatever that was from.
Yeah.
But I read Mathewson's book, The Player. I can't remember who wrote it, but The Player.
Mm-hmm.
Really impressed with him. If his cards wasn't so high, I'd show you one of those, but I haven't.
Yeah.
haven't
They're
pulled.
they're a bit out there in this kind of spectrum up here. Yeah.
But and Carl Erskine, the more I read about him, the more I hear about him, the more I like him. I really like players that was born in a town, go to the majors, and they come back to that town. Have been married the whole time to the same woman. Through all that. The more you read into Erskine, you find out about his child being having Down syndrome. I can't remember at the time, but a big promoter and starter of the Special Olympics.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And
very interesting.
Got a documentary. I can't find where to get it. I may buy the DVD. Documentary about him and that journey of that. But yeah, he was a big promoter of the Special Olympics in Indiana, and I think they may have some type of award for him in that. But,
yeah, very cool information. I had no idea. That's why I love like the deep dive into players. And your Google search for that term gave you this, gave you that. You're diving into this thing right here, and there's the 51 card right there. That's cool.
And well, I'll also show this. Here's a return check that I picked up that Carl Erskine wrote, and he wrote it to his church.
His name at the top. Yeah.
No, sorry, was that?
Oh yeah, I see it right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a check that he wrote to his church. He was a church member there for 70 years. Was a deacon, taught Sunday school. Him and his wife's name on the account. And something else I thought interesting about that, the check that it's wrote on, he was actually became the president of that bank. After baseball, he sold insurance for 4 years and then got into banking.
Okay. Very cool. That's great. Yeah, no, this is wonderful. Good stuff. Where do you find a check like that?
Found it on eBay.
Okay. Yeah. For most things, yeah, I search for. Whatever you want.
She said, how'd you get that check? And I said, well, they checks back to you. And she said, I've never had my check sent back to me. And I guess she didn't. Well, I didn't have, when I was 16, that's what I used was a check. I didn't have a card, if I used check or cash. And they always sent copies of your checks, the actual checks, back to you. But she says,
my grandparents having get that in the mail. I mean, I had a checkbook when I was younger, but don't remember. Maybe I turned it off or it wasn't becoming less of a thing then. But yeah, I guess for those guys in the 80s, 70s, back 50s, 60s, yeah, maybe they would have checks floating around.
Yeah. I think till 2005 or 6, my bank sent back the checks to you. When West Plains, we're probably a little bit behind the modern times.
No, it certainly helps in terms of balancing a checkbook and knowing what cashed and what you wrote. You forgot what you wrote a check for 2 weeks ago. Here's what it was. So all that makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have heard some people say that people would send people checks and sign them, like the athletes would sign them.
Hmm.
But they wouldn't cash the check. They would just keep that check to have their signature on it. But
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything to that or not, but
I mean, that is a place where you have to sign, and that
yeah,
would be if you're a prolific check writer and payer with checks, you'd have that athlete's name
yeah.
on a lot of stuff. Certainly, yeah.
Uh, but next Dodger player I was going to show is Preacher Rowe. He's just
Hmm.
three tops. Also got his rookie 49 Bowman.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Uh, Preacher Rowe, probably my second favorite player, just because he's from my hometown. Um,
Wow. Great. Cool.
we used to have a Chinese restaurant here in town that's been out of business for, I don't know, 20 years now. But I remember when I was a kid, me and my mom was in there, and she'd point to him and said, "Well, that's Preacher Rowe over there. He's a professional baseball player." And, of course, I never did talk to him or anything, but I just thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, at the Chinese restaurant in your hometown, his hometown. That's neat.
Yeah. Um, we got a Preacher Row Boulevard, and I completed the West Plains collection. It's every card with West Plains, Missouri on the back. The two players from West Plains are Preacher Row and Bill Verdon.
Really? Wow. Two vintage guys from the 50s. Neat.
Yep. So Bill Verdon, Preacher Row was actually born about 40 miles from here, but after he retired, he put in a store here in town, here in
Okay.
West. And Bill Verdon, he wasn't born here, but he went to school here. And then I don't know how many years into his professional career, he moved to Springfield, which is about an hour and a half away from here, about a town of 100,000 plus people, maybe 200.
Okay.
So Bill Verdon was from this area. So I kind of get into collecting them too.
It's a neat focus. Very, very centralized to you, where you live, where you know about, where you're from. And again, how did you know? Did you just know those two guys' names because you just knew them from your childhood? You knew these guys were from there. Did you do research to know if there was a third or fourth person who's also from there?
No, as far as I know, there's only two that that have baseball cards. There was a guy that late 1800s that you'd see in team pictures, but I
Hmm.
can't even remember what the name of I've never heard of the team. It was like a
Yeah.
team, Texas League or something.
Hmm.
Then there's another guy that played for the St. Louis Browns,
Mm.
and I want to say the early 30s. He played for the St. Louis Browns, and he actually used to be my family's insurance man. But he never had a card. He does have some signed pictures. I haven't got one,
Okay.
but I'll probably. And up until my wife started selling insurance, his boy was the whole family's insurance man until then. So that's kind of a neat deal. That's another guy as a kid. I'd see, an older man, see him walking, and I was thinking, well, that's pretty cool. He used to play professional baseball. But
Yeah, that's great. That's a cool story of people that you were so close to or kind of bumped into with your parents and your grandparents, maybe, and they could say that guy in the 1930s did such and such. That's cool.
yes, and I haven't made the video response yet, but I plan on doing that this week and posting it next week. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, I'm trying to think. It was a video response to. Well, I'm
There's
embarrassed.
there's a lot out there you got to kind of think about and jot down and take notes on for sure.
Yeah, from I think it was John with Nerding Out with Cards, where
Hmm.
our video response of who inspired us for a card.
Yeah.
And I was actually going to pick something you inspired me to get. You showed a Cubs program,
Hmm.
and I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. So I thought later on that day I had to go on either early 50s Dodger program. And in this program, it does have Erskine's name, does
Yeah.
have Preacher Rowe,
Oh,
uh,
excellent.
Pee Wee Reese. He's another Dodger that I like. Uh, he
That's great. They're both Dodgers players, played in the same kind of era. So yeah, if you pick up a program or a team book of some sort, yeah, you probably get them both in there.
Yeah. And Reese is another player that he was from just south of Louisville, that he came back and lived at Louisville in his later life. Uh, I don't have a card of his, but I do have a signed receipt.
Oh,
Kitchen.
yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. That's a little, I mean, you think about autographs on cards and balls and footballs and programs and things like that, or gloves. But yeah, these, if you were an adult living, doing things, paying for things, right? You'd have your signature on lots of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, but like I said, it was on the kitchen order tab deal. Maybe the waitress thought, or waiter thought, "Hey, would you sign this?" I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. That probably was what kind of happened. And someone didn't throw it away, didn't get lost in the mail or lost in someone's stack of envelopes. And it's made it here to 2025. That's cool.
yeah, and I'd kind of like to get an oddball signature from Preacher Rose, since I've got the check and the that kitchen order signature from Reese. I'd kind of like to get something from Rowe. I do have a return check of Rose as well,
Yeah.
but it's not PSA graded.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, yeah. What else? What else do you want? Anything you want to show, or other cards you're excited about, or recent pickups you have?
Um, well, I'll show another Bill Verdon. This 62 tops Bill Verdon with the wood grain around
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of the tops 87.
Yep. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I bought a team set of the tops 87, and I was watching Jeff, a fine card collector. I was watching him, and he kept talking about these Topps Tiffany cards, and I didn't know what they was. So I done a Google search, and I found out for 1987. I was born in 87, so that's kind of my year. I thought, well, I really like the wood, and that'd make a 1987 Tiffany, which the front's just a little glossier finish.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
the back, instead of being cardboard, it's white.
Okay.
Thing
Mm-hmm.
just looks clearer and more slick looking.
There's your Royals right there too.
Yeah, I'm going to try to do the rules team set, and then of course I got a handful of other ones. So I think I've got 2 in person, and I've got 3 on its way here. So just, I guess, 26 more or something like that.
Yeah. We had a lot of cards back in 87 of all the teams. So
Yeah,
lots of commons, lots of stars too. George Brett obviously is there, and some others too in that
yeah,
set. But yeah, I feel like, and you were born in 87, you said too. I was born a few years before that, but I feel like a lot of us who were born around when I was born, that 87 tops wood grain is just so, no pun intended, ingrained in our brains. It was just such a unique, different set. You had the Bo Jackson, you had Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, Will Clark, as you thought were going to be in the Hall of Fame, and they were in the Beckett's. They were talked about, all-star teams, big Bash Brothers, home runs, all that stuff. And none of those guys are in the Hall of Fame. But that set still stands as like a memory, a core memory for a lot of guys our age.
that Will Clark's rookie year.
I think 86, he may have had either a base or a traded 86 tops Will Clark. But eventually he may have had the rookie cup thing at the bottom of that, potentially.
Oh,
Or a star of some sort. Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen him on. I looked at lists like top 10, top 30, and his name was on there. That's why I was wondering that.
Yeah, it's a great set. I've got the set I built when I was, younger in grade school, and then a few singles, some unopened packs. I collect open packs, the boxes of those cards. And yeah, they're not worth a lot opened or probably in packs, but it's just the memory that it brings back is worth a ton to me and a lot of other people.
Yes, yeah. Another card, I do like the Red Man Chewing Tobacco cards.
Yep.
I'm going to try to get the 1952 set with tabs. It's the first year that they had Red Man cards, and they had 52 cards. So yeah, 52 and 52 just made sense to me.
That's a new fact I didn't know about. Thank you for letting me know. I should have. I'm sure people are like, "Oh, duh, you should have known about that, Tony." But I had no idea it was like that type of a short numbered set, or I guess small numbered set.
Yeah,
They're so cool looking. Those are really pretty, and yeah.
25 from the American League, 25 from the National League, and then the 51 World Series coaches. Each had a card.
Okay. There you go. Something more to look into and another rabbit hole for me to research and learn more about and appreciate. That's cool. Thank you. That's
You
good. Well, yeah, I guess we talked a little bit about, before I cut you off, any other kind of cards you want to show or things you want to go through? Got a
I,
couple of things I want to.
but we'll hold off on showing.
We'll do a video too, and we'll show off some more. I want to learn more about that Indian gum set too. That could be kind of off topic and off the camera too. But you mentioned Tony Southern Collector. You mentioned a few other channels throughout here. Anyone other ones you want to shout out, or ones you really like watching, or ones you always tune into that you think others should know about or click subscribe to if they haven't already?
Well, I tell you what, there's so many, and I'd hate to leave out. Is it J Average Vintage Collector?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the name of it. Jay's his name, and it's
Again, have your name in the title and the channel. Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, Average Vintage Collector. I like Everyday Collectors with Jason. I like his. I like Aaron's. Somebody, you asked me a question off camera about different people that I'd like to meet or have met.
Yeah.
I haven't met any of these yet, but I hope to soon. Jayhawker Vintage Cards, Mike. I follow him, really like his channel, follow him on Instagram as well. I plan on meeting him at the next show I'm going to in June 21st. So it's
is that right? Just a couple weeks.
Yep. Just
Very cool.
It'll be a show at Booneville, Missouri. So I've actually got a card bought from him that I'm going to pick up then. So I'll at least bring one pickup.
Good to lock that down. You won't come away empty. That's good.
You bet. Yeah, but no, Jayhawker Mike, he's a great guy. Also, I think Billy Ball Games, sports cards, he's going to be there. I'd like to meet Joe Redneck Collector, Chris from Missouri. John nerding out with cards. Whenever I know he's working away some, so whenever we meet up at a show, I'm looking forward to meeting him. There's so many to go through.
If you name 4, you can name 40, and then 400. Just because you can't remember all the names, unique handles on the YouTube channels. Yeah,
that's kind of like when you go to your YouTube account and you hit subscriptions, and he's like, man, I've got a lot of videos I need to watch. I got to watch his. Not that I have to, I want to, but you want. And some push out videos, once a month, once a week, or more. And you want to support and and you like what they're doing. But again, you got to sleep at some point, and you have kids, I have kids, and we have jobs like everybody else does. So it's hard to get in there. That, just keeps adding to my list. When I see things, I think, I've got to have that, maybe I need to start this set.
It's fun. That's the dangerous / fun side of this, is that you didn't know about. I mean, I knew about the Redmans, but I didn't know some of the 52 cards. That's interesting. Curious who's on the AL and the NL. And is there a Cub? Is there someone else I would know about who's there, right? And so how are they issued, the history of them, and all these got to want to learn about and dive into more. But in time, we'll talk more about that for sure.
I've tried to be selective. I wanted to pick 100 cards that I was wanting to get to be my vintage, be my graded collection. I decided I wanted to go PSA. I like the slab look of that. And my first graded card was a PSA, so I just hit the ground running with that. But I wanted to do 100 cards. I think I'm up to 257 cards now. So I'm going to try to keep it below 300.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's also storage issues too, right? If you don't have a big place, or the shelving or the cabinets are kind of small, and things take up room if they're big and oversized. So it's practicality comes into it too with storing.
I really like the early Bowman cards before, tops, bottom out. And I guess I like the cards 48 to 55. I want to get all the Dodger cards of from 48 to 55 of Bowman cards.
Cool.
I think it's 122 cards in that set. So
you've done your research to have that number ready to go. So you've looked at those already.
Yeah. I ain't close to finishing by any means.
Yeah. They have a lot of Hall of Famers, Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodgers. Some of them came over at that point too, but a lot of great baseball names. Erskine obviously is there, right? And you said Rowe, right, was a Dodger?
Yep.
So yeah, you got those guys too, kind of double counting towards your hometown city list there, plus the Bowman Dodgers too. That's cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, good, man. Well, I know we're coming up on about 50 minutes. I know I didn't want to take up too much of your time, be respectful of the time you've got here, being a couple hours ahead of me and things going on outside of card collecting. So thank you for jumping on. This has been great. Learned a lot about your collection, why you like what you like, why you collect what you like, and inspiring me to kind of look at some more things and Google some more things I probably would have Googled anyway, but now I'm going to look at them because you mentioned the sets, the team, the players, the connections between players and teams, which is really cool. So thanks for sharing and thanks for jumping on.
You bet. I thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. And I've been looking forward to this, well, since last Friday. So I was late for it, but I really appreciate you reaching out and having.
No problem. Yeah, I know a lot of guys you mentioned on channels are from like that Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas area. So these are like a definitely small, strong group of collectors in that area. So say hi to those guys for me when you see them in a week or two, I guess. Where's that at, the card show again you're going to?
Booneville, Missouri. It's
Missouri.
Pretty between St. Louis and Kansas City.
So how far is that for you to jump up there?
3.5 hours.
Okay, so like a day, probably pull it off and then.
Yeah, it'll be an early morning and late night, but
yeah. Well, good luck. Glad you got that card from Mike, and good luck with any other pickups and stuff you see there too. So.
Well, I sure appreciate it.
Cool. We'll talk to you later, Ross. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye.